Hello guys, Golden Messiah here. First of all, happy holidays to everyone who celebrates. I hope you're having a wonderful time with your families and people you care about. In the final moments of the year, I wanted to offer a retrospective regarding Diablo 4 in 2024. How it started, how it ended, and what can we hope for in 2025. And of course, just sharing my own personal experience and opinion along the way. Released in 5th of June 2023, Diablo 4 is now already a year and a half old. From that point to today, the game has understandably had quite a journey, and boy what a journey it was. The game that we know today has been almost completely redesigned from the state it was back when it was released, and while we still have a long ways to go, I think most of you will agree that it changed for the better. But let's start from the beginning. After some rocky start, and with Season 2 getting to a close, Season 3, the Season of the Construct, began on 23rd of January 2024. This is when I first started playing the game as well. I made a conscious decision not to go through any guides or read anything about the game at all, made a character, and jumped straight into the campaign. My first experience was extremely positive. I welcomed the immediately noticeable dark and brooding atmosphere of the game, a strong departure from its predecessor. I, like many of you I imagine, spent way too much time customizing my character's appearance to make sure it's just right, and was really pleased when I could immediately see my necromancer appear in the first cutscene of the game. I really enjoyed taking it slow and taking my time throughout the campaign, and when I say I took my time, I really mean it. By the time I finally finished the base campaign, I wasn't even level 50 yet, and was just finally getting into the real endgame of Diablo 4. The pace of the game, especially back then, was very different and much slower than what we have today. I will touch just briefly upon the main campaign, as that can be a separate video in itself, but basically I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fresh, the focus on Lilith and Inarius made a lot of sense from the story perspective, cinematics were top-notch, as expected from Blizzard, and characters such as Lorath had a lot of charm and personality. Not everything was perfect, and the campaign did drag on needlessly on certain parts. Also, due to the large open world, at some point in the game you can just skip an act, and the game even spoils you certain events should you choose to do that, which I found a bit confusing. Speaking of that, I really enjoyed the experience of being in one open, huge world map, and the fact that you can go whenever you want, when you want it. Riding on horseback in a Diablo universe across huge distances is not something I ever thought I needed, but I really loved it all the same. After the campaign, I went straight to the season content and the endgame. I thought that the season theme was pretty cool, having your own little buddy augment you and everything. A lot of people have been saying that Season 3 was very underwhelming when compared to Season 2, but I can't really comment on that as I haven't played Season 2. Ultimately, however, after finishing both the campaign and the seasonal questline, and having leveled my construct, I felt a bit strange. There was this huge, lovely, handcrafted open world, but with very little to show for it. Post-campaign activities revolved solely around killing Duriel, in a little hope to get a mythic unique item. There wasn't really anything else to do, and the game felt a bit barren. Fast forward to 14th of May 2024 and we have Season 4, Loot Reborn. Season 4 is perhaps the most important one in the game's history so far, as it set the foundation to some core changes in the game that were absolutely necessary in order for Diablo 4 to improve. Itemization in the game has been completely overhauled. Now we could augment our items with additional affixes through tempering and further upgrade them with masterworking. Greater affixes were also introduced, and along with them, an entirely new dynamic when it came to open hunting. Season 4 also really opened the trading, as most things in the game could be traded with other players at that point. Another core change was made regarding the Codex of Power. Before Season 4, there was a very weird system to imprint legendary power on an item. Players first had to extract the legendary power from items they found, which would be destroyed in the process. The power extracted in that way would then be kept in your inventory and was able to be used to imprint on a different item. What this all meant is that essentially more often than not, players would have to keep an entire stash full of useless items just in case they would need to use the affix one day. With the new system, however, salvaging the item simply adds the legendary aspect permanently to your codex, which you can then upgrade by simply salvaging more items with better rolls. Season 4 is also responsible for adding the Pit, an endgame activity inspired directly by Greater Rifts from Diablo 3. The Pit is a randomly generated dungeon where players have up to 15 minutes to kill enough monsters to fill a progress bar and kill the dungeon boss. Players can choose the level they want to run, and by increasing the level they also increase the difficulty and the rewards as well. Main rewards at the time were materials for the masterworking system. On top of everything else, Season 4 also introduced Andariel as a counterpart to Duriel in the boss ladder and made Helltide a lot more exciting by introducing Blood Maiden, Hellborn, and the threat system. Overall, Season 4 changes were, by every account, a massive success, and they were important in setting the groundwork for future changes to follow. I remember having a ton of fun playing the new Helltides, being able to temper my items while leveling, and immediately noticing how much more powerful they made me be. The so-called 2.0, however, was not without fault. Many to this day malign the random and often unforgiving nature of tempering that can essentially brick a valuable item and make it completely useless if you don't get the temper that you need. While masterworking RNG can often be so frustrating that it makes a person lose a bit of their sanity. Season 5, called Season of the Infernal Hordes, went online on 6th of August. Meant to bridge the gap between Season 4 and the upcoming expansion, it was the shortest season to date, lasting only for 2 months. Despite of that, it introduced yet another completely new activity called Infernal Hordes, where players engage in an arena trying to kill as many monsters possible between incoming waves. I also quite enjoyed the new seasonal questline and the voice acting as well. I have to say that the quality of certain assets, especially the voice acting, is surprisingly great considering that it was explicitly made for that season only. I also really enjoyed Infernal Hordes, and I still do. With Hordes, Diablo 4 finally fully embraced its identity of a super fast, blasting endgame gameplay as opposed to a much slower feel before Season 4. It was also a lot better way to get masterworking materials, which really relegated the Pit into insignificance. And of course, now we get to the October 7th. Two incredibly important things have happened at the same time. First, that was the release of Vessel of Hatred, the first Diablo 4 expansion, and also Season 6 with its Patch 2.0, which completely overhauled the game yet again. Even though players, especially those playing Vessel of Hatred, were met with some huge changes, we actually need to separate them into two different categories. Number one is basic game changes and expansion only changes. Basic game changes are those that came with Season 6 and affect all players whether they have the expansion or not. And they are huge. First of all, a giant stat squish. Most stats like armor, life, resistances, etc. were reduced to a mere fraction of their own values. For instance, before you needed over 9,000 armor to hit the armor cap, now that number is 1,000. Secondly, before the patch 2.0, maximum character level was 100, with Paragon points started being awarded at level 50. Now they made 60 the max level and completely redesigned Paragon to now be account-wide with a maximum level of 300. This did several things. First of all, it streamlined the leveling process and also allowed players to gain more benefit from monster kills after hitting the level cap, which is yet another thing directly inspired by Diablo 3. And I do like the redesign, although there is something to be said about the charm of getting that level 100. Finally, the game completely redesigned the way it scales difficulty. Before Season 6, things were a bit more complicated, to put it lightly. Monster difficulty was based on their level, and their level depended on player level, the world tier the player was in, the level of the dungeon key, etc, etc. All that was scrapped. And instead, the game introduced a new difficulty system. First, we have normal, hard, expert, and penitent, which can be unlocked after hitting level 50. And then we have Torment difficulties, going from Torment 1 all the way to Torment 4, which is yet another thing directly inspired by Diablo 3's difficulty system. Torment difficulties are designed to beat the new endgame, with a very sharp increase in difficulty between them. According to devs, the idea behind them is to streamline the entire difficulty process and to allow players to reach the end game faster, because whether you're playing Torment 1 or Torment 4, you gain access to the same things, like for example the new ancestral items that are now best in slot. These things are clearly huge, and further push the game into the fast-paced ARPG gameplay as opposed to a more slow burn experience of something like Path of Exile. As if these changes weren't enough, Vessel of Hatred also introduced a completely new character, the Spiritborn, new zone Hantu, and along with it, new dungeons, monsters, objectives, strongholds, etc. Also, it introduced 2 new endgame activities in the Undercity and the Dark Citadel, and also a brand new rune system. And of course, a new campaign, which, let's face it, was a bit underwhelming. But that's a topic for another time. Now, when it comes to the Vessel of Hatred additions, I really like them. Undercity replaced the Gauntlet, which was a similar time attack activity that was very unpopular, and personally, I never cared for it at all. Undercity also allows players to, at least in theory, target farm affixes and items, and also presents a different alternative to get masterworking materials, runes, and more. I like the flair and design of the Undercity, and generally have a lot of fun running it. Dark Citadel, on the other hand, is so far the first co-op activity in Diablo 4. This decision was not without some controversy, as a lot of players played Diablo 4 solo. I will be completely honest, I like the way they took the time to create something new and fresh, and I do enjoy some mechanics from Dark Citadel, though overall, as I also generally play the game mostly by myself, I rarely engage with it. But it's nice that it's there, I suppose. And there you have it. What a journey, huh? In a single year, Diablo 4 went from a game that, even though it had a lot of potential, had basically no endgame and felt empty after a while, despite the vast open world, to a completely different experience that finally feels like a fully fleshed out game. Something that feels alive and is actually presenting you with options and things to do and inspire to. So what's on the horizon now? Well, currently, this season is scheduled to end on 21st of January next year, and Season of the Witchcraft will then follow. We're finally getting an armory, some other nice upgrades, and from the looks of it, probably the best season mechanic so far. Things are of course far from perfect, but I think that us Diablo 4 fans have a lot of things to look forward to. I'm sure that the game will only continue to improve as time goes on, and who only knows how the game will look this time next year. But anyway, thank you guys so much for sticking around with me on this video and this little retrospective. I hope all of you have a successful and happy new year. I have a lot of plans regarding this channel next year, so I hope you continue to join me in my journey. I only seriously started making these videos 2-3 months ago, and I'm really happy with how things have been turning out already. I'm still fresh, still learning and improving every single day, so your support means a lot. If you want, please consider subscribing, as it really helps a small channel like mine. I'm Fallen Messiah, and I'll see you all in the next one.